Good evening, night owls, and welcome to Whisper Crowley. Tonight, I will guide you into a world of darkness, hoping to help you relax and unwind. Perhaps some of you will even drift into a haunting yet soothing sleep. Before we begin, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. And now we begin. Have you ever felt the chill of something lurking just beyond your sight? The kind of cold that crawls up your spine and makes the hair on your neck stand on end. It was exactly that feeling that crept over me the night I first heard the whispers echoing through the old hallways of the dormitory. It was late past 3 in the morning when I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. The University of Utah's dormitory, an aging structure with creaky floors and dimly lit corridors, held a reputation. The kind of reputation that makes you shiver just thinking about it. Rumors floated through campus like autumn leaves in the wind, tales of a hooded figure spotted gliding silently down the hall, always appearing at the same time each night. Some students swore they had seen it. Others claimed to have heard the soft shuffling of footsteps echoing in the silence. But no one had ever been able to explain the chilling tales or the sudden disappearance of a student who had dared to follow the shadow. I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. Perhaps it was my insatiable curiosity or a misguided sense of bravery. Regardless, I had made up my mind that I would uncover the truth behind the legend. My friends warned me to stay away, to let sleeping shadows lie. But deep down, I felt an inexplicable connection to the story, as if the spirit lurking in the halls beckoned to me. That night, I found myself standing in front of the heavy wooden door that led to the hallway. The air was thick with anticipation and a hint of mildew, typical of a building that had weathered countless winters. I pushed the door open and it creaked ominously, echoing through the empty corridor. Instantly, the warmth of my dorm room faded, replaced by a cool draft that whispered secrets of the past. As I stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It enveloped me, almost suffocating in its intensity. My heart began to race, the rhythmic thud against my ribcage a stark reminder of my solitary presence in that vast, dark space. With each step I took, the old wooden floorboards groaned beneath my weight, a dissonant symphony that seemed to awaken the shadows lurking just out of view. The hallway stretched long and narrow, its walls lined with faded posters and worn-out photographs of students long gone. The dim light flickered above me, casting unsettling shadows that danced and twisted with every gust of wind. It was disorienting, and I felt an overwhelming sense of unease settle in my stomach. Then a sound, a soft shuffling barely audible. My breath caught in my throat. I strained to listen, my heart pounding louder than before. Was it just the wind? Or was someone or something truly moving in the dark? Get a grip, I muttered to myself, attempting to silence the rising tide of fear. It's probably just the old building settling, but deep down I knew it was more than that. The stories, the whispers, they had taken on a life of their own, and I was now a part of it. As I moved further down the hallway, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement. I turned sharply, my pulse quickening, but nothing was there. Just shadows. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, but the sensation of being watched grew stronger. A chill swept through the corridor, and I could smell something faint yet distinctly unsettling. It was a mix of damp earth and decay, an odor that clawed at my senses and made my skin crawl. I paused, glancing over my shoulder, convinced I wasn't alone. I took a deep breath and pressed on, the floor creaking beneath me. My thoughts spiraled, racing between rationality and fear. What if the rumors were true? What if I was being led into a trap, just like the student who vanished? A wave of dread washed over me, but I pushed it aside, driven by my insatiable curiosity. As I approached the end of the corridor, I felt a sudden rush of cold air, as if the very walls were exhaling a warning. My instincts screamed at me to turn back. But before I could make a decision, a shadow flickered at the far end, a dark figure draped in a flowing hood. It stood motionless, barely illuminated by the flickering light, as if waiting for me to make the next move. My breath hitched in my throat. Was this the apparition the rumors spoke of? The hooded figure that haunted these halls? I squinted, my mind racing, desperate to discern whether it was merely a trick of the light or something far more sinister. The shadow seemed to stretch, elongating unnaturally, and my heart raced as a chilling realization set in. I was no longer just an observer. I was now the prey. Panic surged through me, and I turned to flee, my feet pounding against the wooden floor. I could hear the soft shuffling behind me, growing closer, a sinister echo that fueled my desperation. The once familiar corridor twisted into a maze of shadows, each step feeling heavier than the last. Run, I urged myself, heart racing, as I burst into the open space of the common area. I could still feel the presence behind me, an invisible weight that pressed down on my chest. I spun around, my eyes scanning for the figure, but all I could see were the remnants of an old dormitory. No hooded figure, no lingering shadows. Yet the filing remained. The sensation of being watched. The lingering whispers. I was not alone. As I stumbled backward, my pulse echoing in my ears, I knew I had awakened something in that corridor, something that had waited in the dark for far too long. The students might have forgotten the tales, but I had unwittingly become part of the legend. And in that moment, I realized the true danger of curiosity. It could lead you down a path from which there is no return. My heart raced as I stood in the common area, gasping for breath. The flickering fluorescent lights cast a sickly yellow hue across the room, creating an unsettling contrast to the shadows that loomed in the corners. My mind spun, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it real? Had I truly seen the figure? The whispers echoed in my head, a chilling reminder that I had crossed a threshold I couldn't easily return from. The common area felt strangely foreign now. Where once it had been a bustling hub of laughter and chatter among students, it now held an oppressive silence that weighed heavily on my shoulders. I could almost hear the ghosts of laughter from days gone by, mingling with the whispers of those who had come before me. The air was thick with unspoken stories, and I felt an overwhelming urge to escape, to put as much distance between myself and that corridor as possible. But a morbid curiosity tethered me to the spot. What if I was meant to confront whatever haunted those halls? The thought both terrified and intrigued me. I found myself drawn back to the idea of unraveling the mystery, of understanding the force that had compelled me to seek it out. I shook my head, trying to dispel the thoughts swirling in my mind, but it was no use. Just then I heard it again, a soft shuffling sound, more pronounced this time. My breath caught in my throat as I turned slowly, straining to hear. It was coming from the hallway I had just fled. My heart pounded and I instinctively took a step back, the cool tile of the floor grounding me for a brief moment. The sound was undeniable. Something was moving, lurking just out of sight. I hesitated, my instincts screaming for me to run, yet the part of me that craved answers urged me to investigate further. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the rising tide of fear. "Just a quick look," I whispered to myself. "If I don't see anything, I'll go back to my room." With that resolve, I ventured toward the darkened hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last as I made my way back. The shadows seemed to close in around me, the air thick with tension. The soft glow of the common area faded behind me, swallowed by the darkness that lay ahead. I reached the entrance to the corridor, and for a moment I simply stood there, heart pounding in my chest, listening intently. The shuffling had stopped, leaving only silence in its wake. I peered into the darkness, the faint outline of the corridor stretching before me like a gaping maw. The flickering light at the far end barely illuminated the space, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. My fingers brushed against the cool surface of the door frame, and I took another shaky breath, stepping forward. As I walked deeper into the corridor, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature dropped, and a sense of dread settled over me like a heavy fog. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes were following my every move. The walls seemed to close in, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. I felt the weight of history pressing down on me, the memories of countless students who had walked this path before. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something flicker, a movement just beyond the reach of the dim light. I turned quickly, but again there was nothing. Just shadows. My pulse raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I strained to see into the darkness. The sensation of being watched intensified, making my skin crawl. I reached into my pocket for my phone, illuminating the path ahead with its weak glow. The familiar, comforting sound of my friends' laughter echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the eerie quiet surrounding me. I felt utterly alone, the kind of isolation that seeps into your bones and settles there like a heavy stone. As I advanced cautiously, I began to notice details I hadn't seen before. The walls were lined with old, peeling wallpaper, its faded patterns whispering of a time long past. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath my weight, each sound amplified in the stillness. And then there it was again, a whisper, faint but clear, brushing against my ear like a ghostly caress. I paused, heart pounding. The voice was unintelligible, but it held an urgency that sent shivers down my spine. It felt as if it were beckoning me, drawing me further into the dark. I fought against the urge to flee, wanting to understand. I took another step, and suddenly the air felt thick, almost suffocating. My phone's light flickered ominously, and I could swear I saw the shadow shift just at the edge of my vision. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice wavering slightly. The sound felt small and insignificant in the vastness of the hallway. Silence answered me, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. I strained to hear anything, breath, footsteps, the slightest indication that I was not alone. Then, without warning, the flickering light above me died, plunging the corridor into complete darkness. My heart raced and panic surged through me. I swung my phone's light around, desperate to catch a glimpse of whatever was lurking. The beam landed on a wall, and then suddenly I saw it, the hooded figure now mere feet away from me, its presence unmistakable. I froze, terror flooding my senses. The figure was taller than any person I had ever seen, the hood casting a shadow over its face, obscuring any features. Yet there was something profoundly unsettling about its stillness, as if it were waiting for me to make the next move. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, a prey ensnared by its own curiosity. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a storm, drowning out my thoughts. I could almost make out words, fragments of sentences that echoed with desperation and sorrow. A chill raced down my spine as I took a step back, the shadows seeming to stretch toward me, eager to pull me into their depths. I had ventured too far into the unknown, and now I was faced with a choice: confront the figure and uncover the truth, or flee and risk never knowing what lay hidden in the darkness. My mind raced, torn between the insatiable need for answers and the primal urge to survive. Just then the figure began to move, gliding forward with an unnatural grace. My heart raced and I stumbled backward, the cold wall pressing against my back. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around me, and the whispers became a cacophony of voices, each one pleading, warning, begging to be heard. In that moment, I understood that the corridor held more than just shadows. It was a gateway to the past, a tether to the souls that had once roamed these halls. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I realized that the figure wasn't just a manifestation of fear. It was a reminder of what could happen if one dared to pry too deeply into the unknown. And then, as if the air had been sucked from the room, I made my choice. I turned and ran, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the corridor, drowning out the whispers. I could feel the shadows closing in, a breath away from swallowing me whole, but I pushed forward, fueled by adrenaline and the desperate need to escape the darkness behind me. I sprinted down the corridor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The world around me blurred, the shadows creeping along the walls like fingers grasping at my legs, trying to drag me back into the abyss. I could still feel the weight of that figure's presence looming behind me, an oppressive force that seemed to merge with the darkness itself. Each step reverberated through the empty hall, echoing like a war drum, the sound both familiar and utterly alien in the cold, still air. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached the intersection of the corridor. To my left, the hallway led to the common area, a sanctuary of light and laughter I had fled moments ago. To my right, another corridor stretched into the unknown, equally dark and foreboding. My instincts screamed for me to turn back toward the light, to seek safety among my friends, but a lingering compulsion drew me toward the darker path. I hesitated for just a moment, fear coiling tightly in my stomach, and then I took a sharp right, propelled by sheer terror. The dim light from my phone flickered as I ran, illuminating bits of dust that danced in the air, each motes like tiny spirits caught in a trance. The floor creaked beneath my feet, every sound amplifying the fear that coursed through my veins. I felt as if I were in a living nightmare, the shadows closing in, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to know. As I dashed down the corridor, I suddenly caught a glimpse of movement ahead. A flash of white flickered in my peripheral vision, and I instinctively turned my head. There it was again, the figure, or at least a remnant of it, slipping around the corner like smoke. My pulse quickened, fueled by a mix of dread and curiosity. I had to know, I had to understand what this entity wanted. Why had it shown itself to me? I followed, heart racing, adrenaline surging through my body. The figure danced just beyond the reach of my phone's light, tantalizingly close, yet frustratingly out of reach. I pushed myself to run faster, my feet pounding against the floor as I pursued it down the winding corridors, which felt like a labyrinth. Each turn seemed to morph the space around me, the walls closing in like an embrace, urging me deeper into the dark. The whispers intensified, swirling around me like a tempest. I could make out fragments of words, names, places, emotions. "Help me," one voice pleaded. "Remember," another whispered, filled with sorrow. Panic rose within me as I strained to hear them more clearly, my mind racing to comprehend the significance behind their urgency. Were these the echoes of the past, the lost souls tethered to this place, or was I losing my grip on reality? As I rounded another corner, the air shifted dramatically, dropping several degrees in temperature. I shivered involuntarily, my breath becoming visible in the icy atmosphere. My phone's light flickered again, threatening to die. "Not now," I muttered under my breath, gripping the device tightly. I couldn't let the darkness engulf me. "Not yet." I pressed forward, my feet moving almost instinctively. Suddenly, the figure reappeared directly in front of me, silhouetted against a faint light that emanated from a doorway further down the hall. It stood there motionless, a shadow against the dim glow. My heart lurched. Was it trying to communicate? I could feel the air thickening with unspoken words, the atmosphere crackling with tension. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice breaking the oppressive silence. I felt foolish speaking to a shadow, but desperation clung to my words. "What do you want?" The figure tilted its head slightly, the hood obscuring its face. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw the outline of a hand reach out, almost beckoning me closer. My instincts screamed at me to turn and run, but the curiosity that had led me here was too strong to resist. I took a cautious step forward, heart racing, inching toward the figure. As I did, the whispers crescendoed into a symphony of voices, each one distinct yet overlapping in a haunting chorus. I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness wash over me, a tidal wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. It was as if the spirits of those lost had merged with the darkness, each one longing for release. I could almost feel their pain, their desire to be remembered. Suddenly, the light from the doorway flickered, casting the corridor into near darkness once more. The figure's silhouette wavered, and I could sense it pulling away from me, retreating into the shadows. I felt a sharp pang of desperation, a fear of losing this connection, whatever it was. "Wait," I shouted, my voice echoing down the hall, but the figure vanished, swallowed by the darkness. I stumbled forward, feeling the cold grip of despair tightening around my chest. I had to know more. I had to understand what was happening in this haunted place. I reached the doorway, pushing it open to find a small room bathed in a pale, ghostly light. The walls were lined with old photographs, faded memories of students who had once called this dormitory home. I stepped inside, my breath hitching in my throat as I scanned the faces in the frames. There were smiles, laughter frozen in time, but there was also something else, a sense of loss, a lingering sorrow that echoed through the years. It was as if each photograph held a piece of a story, a fragment of the lives that had been lived here. And then I saw it, a photograph on the far wall that made my heart skip a beat. It was a picture of a young woman, her face eerily familiar. She wore a dress from a bygone era, her hair styled in soft waves. But what struck me most was her expression. It was one of longing, a deep yearning that transcended time. Below the photograph was a name, Clara Thompson, dated 1978. Clara, I whispered, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer. My heart raced as I felt an inexplicable connection to this woman. I reached out to touch the frame, my fingers brushing against the glass. As I did, a wave of emotion surged through me, a vision flashing before my eyes, Clara, standing in the very corridor where I had seen the figure, her face illuminated by the same dim light. And then it struck me, the realization that Clara might be more than just a photograph. She could be the shadow, the very essence of the figure I had encountered. Was she trapped here, bound to this place, unable to find peace? The thought sent shivers down my spine. What if I had stumbled upon a story that was still being written, a tale of sorrow and longing that begged to be told? Just then the whispers returned, now more focused, converging on Clara's name. Find her, they urged. Remember us. The urgency in their voices was palpable, and I felt the weight of their collective sadness settle around me like a cloak. I knew in that moment that I had to uncover the truth of Clara's story. The shadows had led me here for a reason, and I was determined to follow this path to its end, even if it meant confronting the darkness head-on. The weight of Clara's photograph lingered in my mind, a heavy burden that pressed down on my heart. As I stood in that small room, surrounded by memories and whispers, the shadows of the dormitory felt alive, pulsing with an energy that was both eerie and strangely comforting. I could almost hear Clara's voice, a faint echo that tugged at my consciousness, urging me to understand the story behind her haunting gaze. With a deep breath, I stepped back from the wall and surveyed the room more closely. Dust motes danced in the dim light, creating a dreamlike atmosphere that blurred the lines between the past and present. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, its floral pattern faded and frayed, reminiscent of a time long gone. The furniture, old and mismatched, seemed to hold the weight of countless conversations, laughter, and secrets shared late into the night. As I turned, something caught my eye, a small desk in the corner, its surface cluttered with papers, notebooks, and an old brass lamp that looked as if it hadn't been touched in years. I approached cautiously, my pulse quickening with anticipation. What if there was something here, a clue that could unlock the mystery of Clara's fate? I reached out, brushing away a thin layer of dust to reveal the titles of several worn journals stacked haphazardly. I opened the top journal, its pages yellowed with age. The handwriting was elegant yet slightly erratic, as if the author had poured their heart and soul into the words. I began to read, absorbing Clara's thoughts as they spilled onto the page. October 10th, 1978. The autumn air is crisp, and the leaves are starting to change. I can feel a restlessness in the dorm, as if the walls themselves are alive. They say the spirit of a girl haunts these halls, but I refuse to believe in such nonsense. Still, I cannot shake the feeling that something is watching me. The entry sent a shiver down my spine. Clara's words resonated with my own experiences. I could relate to her unease, the feeling of being watched, the shadows that seemed to shift and move just beyond my vision. As I read on, her entries revealed a growing obsession with the legend of the spirit, a desire to uncover the truth behind the whispers that filled the air at night. November 3rd. I have decided to investigate. There are rumors of a hidden room at the end of the West Corridor, a place where the spirit was last seen. My friends think I am foolish, but I feel compelled to find her. I need to understand why she lingers here. I could sense the determination in her words, the same curiosity that had driven me into this labyrinth of shadows. With each entry, Clara's fear and fascination intertwined, painting a vivid picture of a young woman caught between the world of the living and the echoes of the past. I flipped through more pages, eager to uncover the path she had taken, and soon I found another entry that made my heart race. November 8th. Last night I ventured into the corridor alone. The air was thick with a coldness that clung to my skin. I felt her presence, I swear it. I heard whispers calling my name. It was as if she wanted me to follow. I'm terrified but drawn to it like a moth to a flame. I closed the journal, a knot forming in my stomach. Clara had ventured into the unknown just as I had. But what had happened to her? Did she find what she was looking for, or had she vanished into the very shadows she sought to understand? My heart raced with questions, and I felt the pull of destiny urging me to continue her search. I glanced around the room, my mind racing. I had to find that hidden room to uncover the truth that Clara had pursued so fervently. I couldn't let her story end in tragedy. I had to give her a voice to remember her. Leaving the journal behind, I returned to the corridor, the shadows whispering their secrets as I walked. The chill in the air seemed to deepen, as if the dormitory itself was aware of my intentions. I approached the West Corridor, the air thickening with every step. The walls, lined with faded portraits of former students, felt like they were watching me, their eyes filled with unspoken stories. As I ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted. The familiar sounds of the dorm faded away, replaced by an unsettling silence that pressed against my ears. Each creak of the floorboards felt amplified, echoing through the emptiness. I moved cautiously, my phone's light flickering like a heartbeat, illuminating the darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. I reached the end of the corridor where a heavy wooden door stood, weathered and worn. It was slightly ajar, a faint glow seeping through the crack. My breath quickened as I pushed the door open, the hinges creaking in protest. The room beyond was dimly lit, filled with a musty scent that hinted at years of neglect. Inside, the air felt electric, charged with an energy that sent shivers down my spine. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. The walls were lined with shelves, cluttered with dusty books and odd trinkets that seemed to vibrate with a life of their own. In the center of the room stood an ornate mirror, its surface cracked and tarnished, reflecting the dim light in fragmented patterns. As I approached the mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement behind me. My heart stopped. I turned swiftly, but the corridor was empty, only shadows stretching along the walls. I could have sworn I had seen something, someone, just out of the corner of my eye. Ignoring the chill creeping up my spine, I returned my gaze to the mirror. My reflection looked back at me, but something was off. The shadows around me seemed to twist and swirl, forming shapes that danced just beyond my view. I leaned closer, entranced by the flickering light, and for a fleeting moment I saw Clara's face within the glass. She was there, her eyes wide with fear, her lips moving as if trying to speak. My heart raced as I reached out, fingers brushing against the cold surface of the mirror. "Clara," I cried, but her image faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only a lingering echo of her presence. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around me like a tempest. "Find us," they urged. "Remember." Panic surged within me. I had to act quickly. I needed to uncover the truth behind Clara's fate, to understand why she was trapped here, haunting the shadows of the dormitory. With renewed determination, I turned back to the cluttered shelves, searching for anything that could guide me further into the mystery. Among the dust-covered books, one volume caught my eye, a leather-bound journal that looked newer than the rest. Its spine was cracked, as if it had been opened and closed many times, and I could feel an inexplicable pull toward it. I reached for the journal, my fingers trembling, and as I opened it, a wave of energy surged through me, as if the very essence of the past was flowing into my veins. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, sketches, and diagrams, chronicling the lives of students who had lived in this dormitory long before my time. I flipped through the entries, absorbing the stories of joy, heartbreak, and the tragedies that had unfolded within these walls. But then I found something that made my heart race, a map of the dormitory, complete with notes highlighting secret rooms and hidden passages. My eyes widened as I traced the lines with my finger. There it was, a small symbol indicating a hidden room, one that matched the whispers echoing in my mind. I knew where I had to go. I was drawn to the depths of the dormitory, where the shadows were thickest, where the echoes of the past awaited. It was time to uncover the truth behind Clara's story, and perhaps in doing so, I could help her find peace. With the map clutched tightly in my hand, I took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The echoes of the past guided me, and I would not falter. Not now. Not when Clara needed me the most. The air grew colder as I moved deeper into the dormitory, the silence amplifying the sound of my own heartbeat. Clutching the map tightly, I could feel the rough edges of the pages pressing against my palm, a reminder of the journey I was undertaking. Each step echoed in the dimly lit corridor, the shadows closing in around me as if urging me to turn back, to abandon the pursuit of the truth. With the flickering light of my phone guiding my way, I followed the map, tracing the faint lines that marked the hidden passage. The notes hinted at a concealed door behind an old bookshelf on the second floor, a space that had remained untouched for decades. As I climbed the creaky stairs, the wooden steps groaned under my weight, adding to the eerie atmosphere that enveloped me. Reaching the second floor, I paused to catch my breath. The hall was narrower than I remembered, the air thick with the scent of dust and forgotten memories. A series of paintings hung on the walls, their frames tarnished, depicting students from a bygone era. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me, their eyes filled with both curiosity and caution. I glanced at them, my heart racing. What stories did they hold? What secrets did they keep? I finally arrived at the designated spot. In front of me stood a tall bookshelf, its wooden frame darkened by age, filled with thick volumes and dusty knickknacks. My pulse quickened as I approached it, my hands trembling slightly. The map had indicated that I needed to push a specific book, a worn-out copy of The Great Gatsby. As I reached out and nudged the book, the shelf creaked ominously, and I felt a shudder run through my body. To my astonishment, the shelf slowly slid to the side, revealing a narrow passageway shrouded in darkness. The air was cool and stale, carrying a faint whisper that sent chills down my spine. I hesitated for a moment, heart pounding in my chest, the weight of Clara's story pressing heavily on my mind. But there was no turning back now. I had to know the truth. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the passage. The light from my phone illuminated the walls, revealing peeling paint and cracks that spoke of years of neglect. The hallway seemed to stretch on endlessly, a tunnel leading to the unknown. I could hear the faint sound of my own breath echoing off the damp walls, amplifying the sense of isolation that enveloped me. As I walked further in, I became acutely aware of the temperature drop. It felt as though I had stepped into another world, one where the sunlight could not penetrate. The walls closed in around me, the shadows growing darker, more oppressive. Each flicker of light from my phone cast long, eerie shapes that danced along the walls, twisting and contorting as if alive. Suddenly I heard it, a low whisper, barely audible at first, but growing clearer as I pressed on. My heart raced as I strained to listen, recognizing the same urgent tone I had encountered earlier. "Help us," the voices pleaded. "Find the truth." The urgency in their tone propelled me forward, deeper into the unknown. The passage opened into a larger chamber, the air thick with an unsettling energy. My phone's light flickered, revealing a vast room filled with old furniture draped in white sheets, remnants of lives once lived. Cobwebs hung in the corners, catching the faint light and making the space feel even more haunting. In the center of the room stood an old table, its surface cluttered with objects, books, candles, and a small mirror. As I approached, I noticed that the mirror was similar to the one I had seen before, its surface marred with age and darkness. The atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation, and I felt an overwhelming urge to uncover the secrets hidden within this chamber. I picked up a dusty book from the table, its pages yellowed and fragile. The title read, "The History of the Dormitory, Tales of the Unseen." My heart raced as I flipped through the pages, revealing accounts of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena that had plagued the dorm for generations. Each story echoed with despair and longing, tales of students who had vanished without a trace, their spirits forever trapped within these walls. I stumbled upon a passage that sent a chill down my spine. It detailed the story of a girl, much like Clara, who had been drawn to the dormitory's mysteries. She had gone searching for answers, following the whispers that lured her into the darkness. The last entry spoke of her fear as she encountered a shadowy figure in the corridor, a presence that had consumed her before she could escape. "Clara," I whispered, a sense of dread washing over me. I was in the same place she had been, following the same path. Had I unwittingly walked into the same trap? Just then, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the light from my phone. Panic surged within me as I fumbled to turn it back on. The darkness felt suffocating, the air heavy with an unseen weight. I could hear the whispers now, louder and more insistent, swirling around me like a storm. "Help us," they cried again, desperation lacing their words. I fumbled in the dark, desperate to find the light, but all I could hear was the rustle of sheets and the echo of my own breath. Then from the corner of my eye I caught a glimpse of movement, a figure, shrouded in shadow, standing at the entrance of the room. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted into the darkness, heart pounding. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond but stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. The air grew colder, and I felt a sense of impending dread wash over me. As the figure approached, the dim light from my phone flickered back to life, illuminating the room just enough for me to see. My heart raced as I recognized the familiar outline of the figure, a tall silhouette draped in a long, flowing cloak, the hood pulled low over its face. It was her, the shadow that haunted the corridors. "Clara," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The figure paused, and in that moment, I could see the faint outline of a face beneath the hood. It was pale, ethereal, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. "Find me," the figure whispered, a voice that echoed like a distant memory. "I am trapped here, lost among the shadows." A chill coursed through my veins as the realization hit me. Clara had not merely disappeared, she was here, trapped in this realm between life and death. The shadows were her prison, and I was the one who could help her break free. "What do I need to do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. The figure extended a hand toward me, a silent invitation, and I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to connect. "Follow the light," she urged, her voice a haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. "But beware of the darkness. It seeks to consume you." The shadows around us swirled, growing darker and more chaotic. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. I had come too far to turn back now. "Okay," I said, resolute. "I will find you. I will free you." With that, I stepped forward, ready to confront the darkness and uncover the truth that had eluded Clara for so long. The shadows danced around me, but I felt a flicker of hope ignite within my chest. Together, we would face the unknown, and I would not let her story end in despair. The journey into the depths of darkness had just begun. I hope you enjoyed the first story. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, but if I didn't do my job well, feel free to give it a thumbs down. Either way, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, let's continue. What if every wish you made came with a price? The thought lingered in my mind as I wandered through Golden Gate Park, the sun dipping low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. I had heard whispers about the infamous Wishing Well, a place where dreams were said to manifest, but with a twist, a dark twist. People spoke in hushed tones, sharing stories of strange dreams and eerie occurrences that followed their visits. Each tale grew more unsettling than the last, weaving a web of intrigue and fear. As I approached the well, an unsettling feeling settled in my stomach. It was an unremarkable structure, a stone circle half overgrown with vines, the water within glimmering like 1,000 tiny stars. The atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension hanging in the air. I could almost hear a soft murmur, like the gentle lapping of water against the stone, or perhaps it was the voices of those who had come before me. I looked around, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows, but the park was deserted. The leaves rustled softly in the cool breeze, casting flickering shadows that danced on the ground. As I stepped closer, I caught a whiff of something sweet yet decayed, an odd contradiction that made my skin crawl. "Just toss a coin and make a wish," I murmured to myself, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. I had come to this well seeking answers, seeking a glimpse of my future. Desperate for change, I pulled a coin from my pocket, a simple penny, dull and worn. With a deep breath, I closed my eyes, whispered my wish, and let the coin slip from my fingers. It plopped into the water with a soft splash, sending ripples cascading outward. For a moment, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, but it was short-lived. The air grew heavy, charged with something electric. I opened my eyes, peering into the depths of the well. The water glowed faintly, illuminating the smooth stones below. A sudden chill ran down my spine. The surface of the water began to ripple again, but this time it was different. The once tranquil scene morphed into something chaotic, the water swirling violently. I stepped back, heart racing, unsure of what was happening. It felt as if the well were alive, responding to my wish in ways I couldn't comprehend. I turned to leave, the unease growing in my chest. As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had awakened something that now watched me from the darkness of the well. The shadows seemed to stretch and sway, twisting in a way that felt almost sentient. That night, as I lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in my mind. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. But as I closed my eyes, the shadows crept in, wrapping around my thoughts. I found myself drifting into a restless sleep, where dreams morphed into nightmares. In my dream, I stood before the well again, its waters boiling with rage. I heard voices, whispers rising in a cacophony, echoing my wish back to me, but twisted and distorted. I tried to step back, but an unseen force drew me closer, and I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet. The faces of those who had come before me swirled around, their eyes wide with fear, their mouths moving in silent screams. I jolted awake, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows of my room felt more oppressive than ever. I could have sworn I heard a soft chuckle, a lingering sound that sent chills down my spine. It was as if the well had reached out to me, pulling me deeper into its mysteries. Days passed and I tried to shake off the lingering dread, but I was haunted by strange dreams and unsettling visions. Each night I returned to the well in my dreams, and each time it felt more real, more terrifying. The water beckoned and the whispers grew louder, a chorus of anguished souls warning me of the cost of my wish. I knew I had to return to the well to confront whatever darkness had been awakened. But deep down, a part of me was terrified of what I might find. What price would I have to pay for my desires? What nightmares lay in wait, hidden beneath the surface of those shimmering waters? As I prepared to face the well again, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a trap, a web of desires spun too tightly to escape. The whispers grew stronger, echoing in my mind. I had to know the truth, even if it meant facing my deepest fears. The well was waiting, and so was my wish. The day arrived when I could no longer ignore the pull of the well. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, unable to resist the allure of its dark promise. As I made my way through the park, the sun hung high in the sky, but a shroud of unease wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. Each step felt deliberate, as if the ground itself were whispering warnings beneath my feet. When I reached the well, the atmosphere was thick with tension, the air humming as if anticipating my arrival. I stood before it, taking a moment to absorb my surroundings. The well, with its stone walls partially obscured by wild ivy, looked both inviting and foreboding. The water glistened eerily, the surface reflecting my apprehensive expression. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a ghostly reminder of the dreams that had haunted me. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered to myself, but the question hung in the air, unanswered. I recalled the faces from my nightmares, contorted in fear, pleading for release. Had I made a mistake by wishing? As I crouched down, the sunlight flickered on the water, creating patterns that danced like shadows. I was captivated, almost entranced by the shimmering surface. Suddenly a sound broke the silence. A low, almost melodic hum emanated from the depths. It felt as if the well was singing, inviting me closer. I steadied my breath, resisting the urge to line over the edge. Instead, I tossed another coin, this time a shiny quarter, into the well. The splash resonated in the stillness, and the humming intensified, vibrating in my chest. A warmth enveloped me, but it quickly twisted into something sinister. The temperature around me dropped, and a sudden gust of wind swept through the park, rustling the leaves and creating a cacophony of whispers. "Make your wish," the voices seemed to say, blending together in a haunting chorus. I shook my head, trying to dispel the mounting dread. My heart raced as I recalled the warnings, desires realized could spiral into nightmares. "Is this what you wanted?" I asked the well, my voice trembling. The wind howled in response, and the shadows around me deepened. Suddenly I heard a faint giggle, light yet eerie. I spun around, searching for the source, but the park was deserted. The laughter echoed in my mind, reminiscent of children playing, but twisted in a way that sent chills down my spine. I turned back to the well and my heart sank. In the reflection, I saw it, a dark figure in the corner of my eye. It was fleeting, barely visible, but unmistakably there. The shape was cloaked, its presence suffocating. I blinked and it vanished, leaving me questioning my sanity. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself, forcing my feet to remain planted. But my mind raced with uncertainty. What was that? Had the well truly awakened something? My thoughts spiraled as I backed away from the edge, but the whispers grew louder, wrapping around me like a serpent. The voices were more insistent now, swirling around my mind like a tempest. They promised fulfillment, relief from my troubles. Yet there was an underlying tone of mockery, an invitation laced with danger. "Why are you afraid?" they seemed to taunt. "What's the worst that could happen?" I closed my eyes, trying to drown out the sound, but the visions flooded back. Faces appeared, twisted in anguish, their mouths moving but no sound escaping. I stumbled backward, a wave of nausea crashing over me. I was losing my grip, the line between reality and nightmare blurring. "No," I shouted, breaking free from their hold. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the earth. The laughter followed me, echoing through the park as I fled from the well and its haunting allure. That night, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, drenched in sweat, haunted by the flickering images of the figure and the laughter that chased me. The darkness felt thicker than usual, pressing against my chest. Every creak of the house felt amplified, as if the walls were alive, listening, waiting. Then, just as I began to drift into an uneasy slumber, I heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Come back," it urged like a siren's call. I shot up in bed, heart racing. The well was calling me again, and this time I knew I couldn't resist. The next day, with a mix of dread and determination, I returned to the well. I felt the shadows closing in, their presence suffocating. Each step felt heavier, the ground more unstable. I had to confront what lurked beneath the surface to understand the true cost of my wishes. As I stood before the well once more, the sun hung low, casting long shadows that danced with a life of their own. I knew I had to face my fears and uncover the truth, but the whispers echoed in my mind, reminding me that some secrets are best left buried. What awaited me in the depths of that well? Would I find answers or more nightmares? With a deep breath, I leaned over the edge, peering into the darkness. The well beckoned me closer, the whispers swirling around me, promising to unveil the secrets of my desires. But I knew deep down that every wish comes with a price. As I leaned over the edge of the well, a cool breeze brushed against my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. The air was thick with anticipation, and the water below seemed to pulse, reflecting shadows that danced like wraiths. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around my mind like tendrils of fog, urging me to plunge deeper into their dark embrace. Just one more wish, the voices coaxed, their tone a tantalizing mix of sweet temptation and sinister foreboding. I hesitated, my heart racing. What if this was a mistake? What if the very essence of my desires turned against me? I took a deep breath and forced myself to focus on my reflection in the water. The girl staring back at me appeared fragile, her wide eyes filled with uncertainty. This is your chance, I told myself. You have to know what lies beneath. I felt a strange connection to the well, as if it held the key to understanding my own heart's longing. With trembling fingers, I grasped another coin from my pocket, a smooth, worn penny. I hesitated, recalling the dreams that had plagued me since I first tossed a coin. Each one had twisted my wishes into haunting nightmares, yet the allure of discovery pulled me closer to the edge. I had to know. Here goes nothing, I whispered, releasing the coin into the depths. It clinked against the stone, the sound resonating like a distant bell tolling in the quiet. The water rippled, and for a fleeting moment, everything was still. Then, as if responding to my offering, the whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of voices entwined in a frenzied dance. Your wish is heard, they chanted. What do you truly desire? The atmosphere shifted, and I felt the ground tremble beneath me. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, a rhythmic drum urging me to speak my wish. But what was it that I truly wanted? Freedom from my insecurities. An escape from my loneliness. The ghosts of my past loomed large in my mind, and I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Please, I began, my voice barely a whisper, I want to understand. In an instant, the well responded. The water churned violently, sending sprays of droplets into the air, catching the fading light in glistening arcs. My heart pounded as a thick mist began to rise, enveloping me in a chilling embrace. I felt an otherworldly energy coursing through me, igniting a flame of both fear and excitement. From the depths, a figure began to materialize, rising slowly from the swirling water. It was cloaked in shadows, the details obscured by the mist. I could make out a face, pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through my very soul. I staggered back, but the voice of the figure was strangely soothing. Do you wish to see? It asked, its tone a hypnotic lullaby. To understand the cost of your desires. I nodded, fear gripping my heart, but curiosity pulled me closer once more. The figure extended a hand, beckoning me to step forward. All will be revealed, it promised, the mist swirling around us like a dark veil. Remember, it warned, not all truths are easy to bear. As the fog thickened, I felt my surroundings shift. The world around me dissolved, replaced by a chilling scene, an endless corridor lined with doors, each one a different color and texture. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of decay and lost dreams. Each door seemed to pulse, alive with a different energy, whispers seeping through the cracks. I stepped forward, drawn to a door that shimmered faintly, painted in hues of deep blue and silver. A sense of urgency washed over me, as if something within was begging to be released. Open it, the figure urged, its presence lingering just behind me. Taking a deep breath, I placed my hand on the doorknob, its surface cold against my palm. With a swift twist, the door swung open, revealing a swirling vortex of color and sound. I was pulled inside, tumbling through a kaleidoscope of memories and dreams. Suddenly I found myself in a familiar setting, my childhood bedroom. Everything was as I remembered, but the atmosphere felt distorted. Shadows danced across the walls, and a chilling breeze swept through the room, causing the curtains to flutter like ghostly wings. I could hear laughter, a joyful sound that filled me with a strange longing. But it soon twisted, morphing into cries of anguish. I turned to see a reflection in the mirror, a younger version of myself, playing with friends, her face alight with joy. But as I watched, the scene shifted. The friends began to fade away, replaced by faceless figures, their eyes hollow and devoid of life. "Why did you leave?" a voice echoed, tinged with sadness and anger. I looked around, confused. "Why did you forget us?" My heart raced as I realized the truth. I had buried my past in the pursuit of new dreams. The weight of my desires had caused me to forget those who had once mattered, those who had shared laughter and tears with me. "I didn't mean to," I whispered, feeling the heaviness of regret settle over me like a shroud. As the scene shifted again, I was pulled into another memory. This time it was my first day at university, the excitement, the hope, the endless possibilities. But as I stepped forward, the bright colors faded into gray, the laughter turned into whispers of doubt. I saw myself standing alone, surrounded by a crowd, yet utterly isolated. "Do you see?" the figure's voice echoed in my mind. "Every wish comes with a cost. Every dream has its shadows." The whispers intensified, merging into a haunting chorus of despair. I stumbled back, the weight of the revelations crushing me. "What have I done?" I cried, my heart aching with the realization of the connections I had severed in my quest for fulfillment. "Face your desires," the figure urged, its tone a blend of compassion and warning. "Understand the burden they carry." Just then, the vortex began to spin wildly, the memories blending into a chaotic whirlpool. I felt myself being drawn deeper, the shadows wrapping around me, suffocating. I could hear the laughter and the cries merging into a cacophony that drowned out my thoughts. I was lost in the depths of my desires, and the true price of my wishes loomed larger than I could have ever imagined. I had ventured into the well seeking understanding, but now I was ensnared in the very nightmares I had wished to escape. As I struggled to break free, I realized that confronting my past was only the beginning. The shadows were not just remnants of dreams, they were part of me, entwined with every choice I had made. I had to find a way to reconcile my desires with the shadows they cast, or risk losing myself entirely. And then amid the chaos, I felt a glimmer of hope. If I could face these memories, perhaps I could reclaim what I had lost. With renewed determination, I steeled myself for the journey ahead. The well had shown me the darkness, but I was ready to uncover the light within. As the vortex continued to whirl around me, I felt an overwhelming urge to grasp the fleeting threads of my memories. Each moment was a piece of my soul unraveling in the chaos. I struggled to breathe, the swirling shadows pressing in like a tightening noose, yet within that pressure I felt a flicker of resolve. Face them, the figure urged, its voice now a whisper amidst the tempest. Only then can you reclaim what is yours. The memories surged around me, and I found myself pulled back into another scene. This time I was standing at the edge of the well, the cool stone against my fingertips. I could feel the weight of the coin in my hand, its surface warm from my touch. The echoes of laughter filled the air, mingling with the distant sound of rushing water. I glanced around, searching for familiar faces, but I was alone. "Why do you keep coming back?" a voice broke through the haze. I turned to see a young boy, no older than 8, with tousled hair and an infectious grin. He was perched on a nearby bench, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "You think tossing a coin will bring them back?" I felt my heart clench at the sight of him. He was the ghost of my younger brother, lost long ago in a tragic accident. The grief of that moment washed over me anew, threatening to drown me in sorrow. "I didn't mean to forget," I choked out, my voice barely rising above a whisper. The boy's expression shifted from playful to serious. "You wished for a life without pain, didn't you? But in doing so, you cast us aside." His words cut deep, echoing with the pain of every decision I had made since that day. I could only nod, shame flooding through me. "I wanted to escape," I admitted, "but I didn't know it would mean losing you." The air shimmered, and suddenly the well's walls seemed to dissolve into a vast, starry sky. The boy stepped closer, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "You can still remember," he said softly. "You can still change." With that, the scene shifted again, and I was thrust into the depths of my university experience. I stood in a crowded lecture hall, the noise around me a dull roar. My classmates were engaged, their laughter and chatter blending into a chaotic symphony of youth. But amidst the liveliness, I felt utterly disconnected, like an outsider looking in. As I scanned the room, I caught sight of a familiar face, a friend I had once cherished, now fading into the background of my life. I had pushed her away, drowning in my own ambitions. Her eyes sparkled with warmth and kindness, but they were shadowed by my neglect. "Do you remember me?" she called out, her voice breaking through the din. "You promised we would always be friends." I felt a surge of guilt, as if the very air around me thickened with regret. "I'm sorry," I called back, but the words felt hollow. The crowd began to fade, and I reached out, desperate to hold onto the connection we once shared. "I didn't mean to lose you." The lecture hall dissolved into mist, and I was drawn into another memory, one of laughter and joy shared under the warm glow of summer sun. We were sitting on the grass, surrounded by blooming wildflowers, the sweet scent of nostalgia filling the air. Promise me you'll always chase your dreams, she had said, her voice filled with sincerity. But my dreams had come at a cost, hadn't they? I had chased success, only to leave behind the people who truly mattered. I felt the weight of those lost connections pulling me down, the guilt wrapping around my heart like a chain. You cannot escape your choices, the figure's voice reminded me, steady and calm. But you can learn from them. The scene shifted once more, and I was plunged into darkness. I could hear my own voice echoing in my mind, a desperate whisper of wishes and desires that had spiraled out of control. The shadows loomed larger, creeping closer with every heartbeat, ready to engulf me. Suddenly, the swirling chaos transformed into a vision of the well itself. The water shimmered, but this time it reflected not only my face, but the faces of those I had lost. Each one gazed back at me with a mix of sorrow and understanding. Their expressions were a haunting reminder of what I had forsaken in pursuit of my desires. "I'm sorry," I cried out, feeling the tears stream down my cheeks. "I never wanted to forget you. I was just so afraid of the pain." The shadows shifted, and I felt their weight lessen. "Acknowledgement is the first step," the figure said softly. "Embrace the pain. Only then can you begin to heal." With renewed determination, I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the present. I could not change the past, but I could confront it. The well had revealed the depths of my desires and the shadows they cast. Now it was time to face those shadows head-on. As the memories swirled around me, I focused on the faces of my brother and my friend. "I remember you," I said, my voice firm. "I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't realize how much I needed you." The swirling shadows began to fade, and the weight of guilt transformed into something lighter, a bittersweet acceptance. I felt the presence of the boy beside me, a gentle smile crossing his face. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "You can carry us with you." In that moment, I understood. The shadows were not just remnants of my past. They were reminders of the love and connection I had once known. I could honor them by embracing my journey forward, learning from the pain and treasuring the joy. As the darkness receded, I felt a rush of warmth envelop me. The well's whispers grew softer, no longer a cacophony of despair, but a gentle reminder of my journey. "You are more than your regrets," the figure said, its voice now a comforting presence. "You are a tapestry woven from both light and shadow." The last remnants of the swirling mist began to dissipate, revealing a path leading away from the well. With newfound clarity, I stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey was not over, but I felt empowered, knowing that I could navigate the shadows and reclaim my desires without losing myself in the process. As I walked away from the well, I felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of my past. The path stretched before me, illuminated by the soft glow of possibilities. Each step was a promise to honor those I had lost and to forge a future that embraced both joy and sorrow. And with every step, I felt their presence beside me, a reminder that even in the depths of despair, love endures, guiding us toward the light. As I moved away from the well, the air around me felt lighter, infused with a newfound energy. Each step echoed with the promise of change, and the weight of my past was no longer an anchor pulling me down. Instead, it transformed into a guiding force, urging me forward. The path stretched out before me, winding through a landscape that felt both familiar and surreal. Trees, their branches heavy with blossoms, swayed gently in a warm breeze, as if welcoming me back from a long absence. The colors of the world seemed more vibrant, each hue alive with possibility. I took a deep breath, letting the scent of earth and flowers fill my lungs. Yet amid the beauty, a shadow lingered at the periphery of my mind. The memories of the well, the faces of those I had lost, reminded me of the responsibility I now carried. They were not just specters of the past, they were a part of me. I needed to honor their memory by living fully, without fear. As I walked, I felt a gentle pull, as if the very ground beneath me was guiding my steps. I came to a clearing, and in the center stood a large, ancient tree, its trunk gnarled and wise. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. I approached it, feeling an inexplicable connection. Underneath the tree, I noticed a small gathering of stones, each engraved with names I recognized. There was my brother's, and beside it, my friend. Each stone told a story, a testament to the love and connection we shared. Kneeling down, I traced my fingers over the engravings, feeling the energy resonate within me. "I'm sorry for everything," I whispered, my voice barely breaking through the serenity of the moment. "I've been lost, but I want to find my way back to you." As I spoke, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead. It was as if the tree listened, absorbing my words, weaving them into its very being. Suddenly the air shimmered, and I felt a presence surrounding me, warm and protective. In that moment, I understood that the well was not just a source of wishes, but a portal to understanding, an invitation to reflect on my desires and their consequences. I could choose to move forward, taking with me the lessons learned from my past. But a sudden chill ran through me, cutting through the warmth. I turned, instinctively sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows around the clearing began to darken, swirling ominously as if the very air had turned heavy with despair. My heart raced as I recalled the stories of those who had been drawn into the well's depths, never to return. "Why are you here?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The shadows coalesced, forming shapes that loomed larger, darker, distorted figures that seemed to writhe with pain and sorrow. They were the remnants of unfulfilled wishes, the echoes of desires gone wrong. "You cannot escape us," one figure hissed, its voice a chilling whisper. "You made your wishes. Now you must pay the price." I stood firm, refusing to let fear consume me. "No, I've learned from my mistakes. I won't let you take me back to that darkness." My voice grew stronger as I embraced the energy of the tree and the memories I carried. "Your desires brought us here," another shadow growled, advancing toward me. "You thought you could wish us away." In that moment, I felt the weight of all the wishes I had cast into the well. Each coin represented a longing, a dream, but also a burden of responsibility. I was not their captor, I was a keeper of their stories. "I acknowledge you," I shouted, grounding myself in the truth of my journey. "I won't let your pain bind me. I choose to remember and honor you." The shadows paused, and a flicker of confusion passed through them. Their forms wavered, and I seized the opportunity to speak from my heart. "You were part of my life. You still are. I promise to carry your memories with me, to share your stories, and to learn from the past." As my words hung in the air, the shadows seemed to tremble. Light broke through the darkness, illuminating the clearing. The tree began to glow softly, casting a warm embrace around me. "Remember," the tree whispered, its voice resonating through the ground beneath me. "You are not bound by your wishes. You have the power to change, to transform your pain into strength." With that, the shadows began to dissolve, retreating into the depths of the forest. The figures that had once loomed large transformed into gentle wisps of smoke, swirling into the air before dissipating entirely. The darkness faded, and with it, the weight of regret that had hung over me for so long. The clearing was once again filled with light, the colors of the world vibrant and alive. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a realization that I could move forward without being shackled by my past. The well, the wishes, and the shadows had all served their purpose, guiding me toward this moment of clarity. I rose to my feet, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The journey ahead would not be easy, but I was ready. I would carry the memories of my brother and my friend, honoring their spirits in every step I took. I would no longer fear my desires. Instead, I would face them with courage and openness. As I turned to leave the clearing, I cast one last glance at the ancient tree. Its branches swayed gently, and I could have sworn I saw the outline of familiar faces among the leaves, a reminder that I was never truly alone. The love and connection I had with those I had lost would always be a part of me. With each step I took along the path, I felt lighter, the burdens of my past replaced with hope for the future. I would create a life that embraced both joy and sorrow, weaving the lessons learned into the fabric of my existence. And as I walked into the sunlight, I knew that the well had given me not just wishes, but a chance at redemption, a chance to forge a path filled with meaning and connection, illuminated by the light of those who had once walked beside me. You made it to the end of the stories. That means it's the perfect time to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you haven't already, leave a like and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have a great time relaxing, and good night.